Hey guys, happy almost Halloween. Who's got a costume? Come on, who has a costume is afraid to actually admit it? All right.
Can I raise my hand for the first one? I have a costume.
You have a costume, great. So what is it?
Dr. Pepper.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Like Pepper MD.
I did, that's awesome. I love these kind of ones. I went to, I don't know if this is PC anymore, but like 8 years ago, I came to our Halloween dance. I'm like, I have no money, I have no costume. What do? I have a white shirt and I have white pants. Perfect, I'll wear them. And I just crumpled up paper all over myself and taped it on me. I was just WT, right? Yeah. And so that was cheap white trash. People were amused at the party, and so yeah, got you. They were like, "What are you?" I'm like, "Come on, think about it. What color am I? What do I have on me?" So if you're looking for a costume, it's really cheap. Printer paper, tape, check. White clothes. Who's having white clothes unless you're a guy? Then they're off yellow, but it still works. Okay. Anybody have plans for? Who went to the Halloween party at our place? Was it pretty legit? It was pretty crazy. Was Father Peter great with all the pyrotechnics and all that kind of crazy stuff? Yeah. Okay, by the way, for those of you who are like, what are you talking about? I think we throw one of the most ridiculously crazy parties, like literally in Boulder. And we're like a Catholic. I mean, there's like intense fog machines, like all these lights that go to music and lasers, and it's...
Parties, we all get to be in bed by 12:30.
We all get to... That was awesome. Except for apparently FP did not stop the music until 1, I heard? So people kept, so there's somebody who get to bed until after 1. So I heard it was pretty awesome. I couldn't make it. I had a party at my place, which turned into a dance party apparently. Like, now I have 3 little kids, so our parties are fundamentally different, like radically different. And everybody's just having their chili, we're all talking, we're hanging out, and then I take our little Everett up to go to bed, and I come down literally to a dance party. Lights are off, there's disco, the music and the lights. I'm like, what just happened? So it was fun. Anyway, so literally when I'm gone, they party. When I come back, they feel like they have to obey the law. Okay, back to the real world. Baptismal certificates. If you don't have them, if you have been baptized, please get them to me as soon as possible. Okay, let's talk about anybody has they been continuing along on the 30-day research and to try a particular practical? Somebody's committed to it still? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's great. Some nods, right? You can use different gestures. What about the prayer assignment? Who attempted that? 15 minutes at least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Great, awesome. How was it? Did it feel? Was it good? Get into a rhythm? What do you guys pray with? Lectio, imaginative prayer? Lectio? Who did imaginative prayer?
Oh.
Yeah, Lauren, you did? Or you have a question?
Wait, did you say imaginative?
Yeah, imaginative prayer. Yeah, you did that one? Great. Awesome. Good. Anybody want to share an experience? That's big. It's vulnerability. Like how it went. It can be positive, it can be negative. Lauren.
Got really distracted.
Got distracted, yeah? I could see that, sure.
Like daydreaming about someone else. And then
Yeah.
Like, oh, what
Oh, to get back in, yeah, totally. Common. Okay. All right. All Saints Day. It's coming up. Day after Halloween, Holy Day of Opportunity, right? So it's on the website. You can go tomorrow. You can go tonight. Not tonight. Tomorrow. Yes, sorry. Tomorrow at 5:10 Mass, we'll meet your Holy Day of Obligation, but you're not fully Catholic, but I would encourage you to participate as if you are Catholic. And then we have a number of Masses on Thursday. Am I correct? Wednesday? Thursday. I'm so confused on days. Thursday, then all the Masses, the 12:10, the 5:10, and the 7:30 p.m. Mass all count. So please come celebrate with us. New business, we have a few new people. So we have Lindsay, we have Zaid, we have Piper here? No. Marshall, right? I say,
Yeah.
Marshall, McKenna. Man, this is our biggest new influx. So let's start with. Can we start with Lindsay? You got you two. All you do is say your name, where you're from, occupation, and what brought you here.
Okay, my name's Lindsay. I would say I'm from San Francisco because I spent the most amount of time in my life there. I'm a senior financial analyst at Oracle, and what brought me here is me and my fiance are planning to get married in a couple months, and we're planning our next phases of our life.
Thanks, Lindsay.
I didn't know we were standing up, but
Oh yeah.
my name is Dave. I originally from Houston, Texas. I've been out here for about a year now. I'm a local dentist out in Louisville, and
So what brought you here? Similar.
pretty much exactly what I
Yeah.
just said.
Yeah. If it diverged too radically, it might be okay.
Very, very.
Yeah. Great. Okay, let's go McKenna, and then we'll wrap around the Marshall. You want to stand up and say your name, your major, and then where you're from, what brought you here.
Okay, I'm McKenna. I'm from Grand Junction, and I go here for school now. I'm undecided for my major, but I want to go to med school. And I'm here because I don't really have a good reason.
That's a good reason, even not to have a reason. So you're just here, moved by the Spirit. Marshall.
How's it going, y'all? My name is Marshall. I'm from Arvada, Colorado. I'm majoring in integrative physiology. And a couple of my friends just told me about this place, so that's why I'm here.
Sweet. Thank you. Welcome. Okay. Birthday's Emily. Birthday. And this is legit. This is like the best birthday ever. Her birthday's on Halloween. Like my son's birthday's on Christmas. The kid's shafted for life. But Halloween is like just like the best promotion. So happy birthday.
I can't speak to the dead.
What?
I can't speak to the dead.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I know you're always.
Okay, one last thing before we pray. Just a reminder, rite of welcome and acceptance is on December 9th. I will say this every week, even though I've said it before. It's on December 9th, not on November 26th. It has been changed, and we'll just keep repeating that. Let's pray. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Good and gracious God, we thank you for this gift. Thank you for just being here, allowing us to be together as a family. Thank you for the gift and the opportunity to learn more about you with the hope and the intention with your grace and with your mercy to be able to integrate this in the deepest recesses of our heart, that we be transformed. We can become new creations, new people, and we can love more greatly. We can be in harmony with ourselves and with our neighbor, with creation, with you, and to live rightly. There is a deep longing for justice, a deep longing for love, and a deep longing for mercy that transcends everything. And deep in the recesses of our soul is this promise. Whether we are believers or not, we have this promise that tells us that one day all things will be reconciled. Because when we see injustice in the world, we cringe, we hate it, and we long for things to be made right. And we know in the deepest parts of our soul that something must be made right. And so we put our hope into you, that all things that have been done not in your name would be restored. And those who have suffered greatly would be lifted above all other people and given the greatest graces and the greatest love and the greatest blessings by you. Help us to understand our capacity for you tonight and where that capacity longs, objectively and subjectively for us, where we feel most connected with you, where we find you, and also maybe those areas where we do not see you, and to bring them to the surface in prayer to you. Be with us this night. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's do roll call really fast. Most of you I think I already have on here. Dustin. Is Dustin? There you go, right back there behind the Hannah. Right. Okay, Kate, I didn't think I saw. No. Keith is here. Laura's here. Lauren is here. Nick's here. Ron's here, Trina's here, Dave and Ann's here, Emily's here, Roman's here. I don't think I see a Justin. Is Justin here? No. Ian's here, Jake's here, Jessica's here. Carlton, I don't think said he couldn't make it, so he's not here. Zachary, oh yeah, he's not, he's Piper, nope. And then Lindsay and Zaid, and I will add you two to the list as well. Great, did I miss anybody? I don't think so. Great. Okay, so this is, now we're kind of starting the catechumenate. The catechumen means we're kind of starting from the beginning now. And at the beginning really means at the very beginning. We're not even going to talk about God tonight. Well, we're going to talk about God, of course. There's no way we can't. But we're going to talk about do we even have a capacity for him? And if we have a capacity for him, what is that capacity? And I want to start with this image. It's one of my favorite juxtapositions in all my slides. They share similar postures, right? But fundamentally different reflections. Right? You have the one who's in the corner. They're both in the corner. Spam caller, sorry. One in the corner, both sitting, both having their arms over their knees, but one sense of what? A sense of the one in the white picture. What evokes from this? Thought.
Loneliness.
What?
Loneliness.
Loneliness. Anything else surface?
Alienation.
Alienation. Anything else?
Contemplation.
Contemplation,
Meditation.
meditation. When I look at that picture, I mean, among other things, I feel like there might be a sense of shame. There's something about that posture just seems a little bit a sense of shame, right? I see nervousness. I see maybe some anxiety, sense of loss. And then you know the other one. What's evoked with that? Prayer, yeah. The scene kind of sets that up. Anything else?
Kind of like hiding in a way.
Okay, hiding, yeah. Introspectiveness, yeah.
Open book makes it look like a study.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Looking for something.
Yeah, search. I don't want to force images, but I feel when I look at this, when I look at this just on my own, the prayerful one seems there's a sense of openness to it. And with the one, the other man, and with the white wall, there seems something to be a little bit closed in, not allowing, or impermeable, a sense of impermeability. And the top one, something's a little more permeable. So why do I start this? Well, I think there is an objective capacity for God, for all of humanity. But there is also a subjective dimension. Both of these people have equal opportunities to actually hear the voice of God. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on in these pictures, so I'm going to just narrate myself. I feel like the one with the white wall has actually said no to that, had no to the voice, the capacity for God, and from that evokes a lot of inward alienation, isolation, right? And the other one has an openness towards God, an openness towards it, allowing the capacity for God to permeate his being. One, I think, is isolation. The other one is solitude. I see a lot of people who come to the university or students who isolate themselves. And they get stuck in their rooms, playing Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it may be, and they become isolated from the world And the problem is that they're using a good, and this is how the enemy works. The enemy, we'll talk about something, there's no such thing as absolute evil. It doesn't exist, right? Evil is a relative reality. Just like darkness is the absence of light, so is evil. It's an absence. It's a deprivation of good. But it must have something good for it to actually still exist. Even in evil, right? Even a guillotine has to have a good, sharp, like metal to actually do its job, right? There's got to be something still on the order of goodness for it to actually function and be evil. And so I see students going into isolation when we're meant for solitude, because solitude is at the essence of our capacity. In solitude, we ask the biggest questions, right? Why do I exist? Why am I where I'm at today? These questions surface, and a lot of times we either go into isolation or what? We plug ourselves in so we can ignore everything so we can't even address these questions, because when these questions happen, it shakes a foundation in us. For many of us, it can shake a foundation. Existential crisis, midlife crisis, right? For you guys, 1/10 life crisis. I don't know where you're at. But these moments, right, that happen, and it's unnerving. And so we tune ourselves out, or we go into isolation. But solitude is the means by which we can actually enter into this kind of introspection, as Lindsay said, and to fully be able to understand who we are in the context of God, so then we can then leave our solitude and be gifts to self. Isolation is self-absorption. You go in to isolate, you just constantly go in, play PlayStation for your own self-gratification, and you eventually become more and more selfish and narcissistic because you have now untapped yourself from the source of life. Whereas solitude is that moment by which you refill, you become self-aware, you know who you are, for the sake that you can then give what you know you have. You cannot give what you do not know you have. And if you don't know yourself, you can't give yourself. Now, trust me, I'm 40 years old and I think I know this much about myself, but at least I can give this much. This is great. This is a great potential for my wife. So, but some of us know even less, right? Because we're plugged in. And we go into solitude. That is our capacity by which God reveals ourselves to our very selves so we can be a gift to others. So let's start with this. Again, like I always do, speed small groups, right? Just 30 seconds, get in a little group. Lindsay, Zay, to be right behind you, just for like really quick. And then I want to ask this question for 30 seconds. Just what comes to mind? What is your capacity for God? So what does this mean? Where do you connect most with God? Just be unrestricted. Just where do you connect? Where is your capacity most prevalent for God? Share with you guys 3 minutes, starting right now. Okay. Come back. So, anybody want to share? Where do you find your capacity for God? Yeah, kind of.
When I'm performing, I'm in a drum corps, and the first time I heard them perform in front of me, I felt this feeling that I was just like, I don't know how to describe it. I've never been able to, but I just knew that that's what I had to do, and I wanted to keep chasing it. And now I've done it for 2 years, and every time I perform, I just get that feeling, and it's just something I know I have to keep doing.
Amen. Sweet. Great. Thank you. Lauren.
Like when anything really bad happens, or it just seems like a lot of things are going wrong, just like little things that kind of remind me that he's still there and looking out for us. Like, for example, like one of my classes this morning, my teacher like just stopped the class at the beginning and asked everyone, it's not like a religion class or anything, so she just asked us to meditate and maybe pray to whoever we believe in on the 11 people victims of the shooting this past weekend, which I thought was just kind of goes to show that like there are a lot of good people in this world.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. What else? Robin. Mass. Great. Okay. Laura.
I'd say being with my extended family and like cooking with people that I really care about, kind of helping facilitate a sense of
Great. Awesome. So I see a connection, right? I see things like when things are pursued as ends to themselves. I think McKenna probably resonates with that. Performing, doing that as like an end to itself, just performance. It's playing, it's connection to people. Nobody said meeting deadlines, right? So not really fun. You feel like a pawn. You feel like you don't have control. You don't feel like you have freedom, right? So a lot of these is a sense of freedom. Especially like as Lauren mentioned, it's probably a sense of freedom in the midst of feeling out of control. When you have a shooting like that, there's a sense of being out of control. And then having a teacher come in puts freedom back into that and imbues freedom in the sense of being out of control. So our capacity for God is in these elements: connectedness, freedom, ends to themselves. These are elements by which we can actually find and discover God. How many of you guys watched that lecture that I sent? Someone? One. Sent last week a link in an email. There's a link to it. You could watch it. It was an academic lecture from here at St. Thomas Aquinas. One of the best lectures I think we've had on the religious sense. If you haven't, go back, watch it. It's really, really good. It's all about the work of Luigi Giussani and the religious sense and this idea of kind of a phenomenological approach to finding God, understanding our capacity for God, which tonight's class is going to take that particular slant. And so he starts with this in the talk. And Giussani's talks about this. He says, the protagonist of life is the beggar. The protagonist of life is the beggar. What he means by this? He means this is the fundamental disposition of humanity. This is the core by which we have our capacity for God. That we are beggars. We are beggars in search of something. And I think we know this everywhere. We're constantly, part of our human nature is to search. Regis Martin said in that video, he said that, when a dog's bored, he naps. But when we're bored, we begin to ask questions, right? We can't help begin to start wondering and moving beyond our own state. So our disposition is that we are beggars. But interestingly, if that's the case, then how does the enemy come in? If the protagonist of life is the beggar, then what's the enemy? What is he doing? So another way to say this is the proper disposition of humanity is to literally be able to receive, right? That's the beggar, to be open to receive. And if we can actually live a life of reciprocity and be able to be openness to be able to receive, if that's it, then what is the enemy going to try to do to us? Roman? Yeah. So we don't receive. So a lot of things, right? But you can see how the enemy works. It's so brilliant and just diabolical, right? We're meant to be open agents of receptivity, but instead what do? We keep our doors shut, locked, because man, it is bad out there, right? I'm locking myself up, I'm keeping myself safe, I'm going to control my environment as much as I humanly can so that nothing can get me. And there's a truth to this, right? Because evil is not absolutely bad. The world is kind of crazy right now. Look at this weekend. It is scary. And so the enemy says, you're right, it is scary. Don't keep your hands open, because what you're going to get is a snake. What you're going to get is an explosive. So hold tightly to your own life and preserve it for as long as you humanly can, then you'll truly live. But when we do that, what happens? It sucks the life out of our entire life. We try to control and we dissipate, we atrophy. We become isolated. We can become cornered, we have no friends. But we need to break out of that to reach our capacity. Our capacity for God, first and foremost, is as a beggar. And the biggest thing he talks about, we're constantly as a beggar, if that's what it means to be human, we are a beggar in search. We are in search, and how we search is by asking questions. And the only proper place to ask questions is in the confines of solitude. because we can't ask questions when we're plugged into podcasts and just connected to video games. We don't have the capacity to ask questions. It's in the stillness of our own lives, right? When the water is calm, right? Try to look at like whitewater rafting's awesome and also scary, but try to look in the white water and you see nothing but just chaos. You don't see yourself, but when the water calms, you can look at it and see a reflection, right? You can see yourself for who you are. And when the water is calm in your own life, which oftentimes it's not, so you have to create it. How many people have a fundamentally calm life in here? No one, right? So you have to carve out time to have the still water, so then you can ask the questions. Who am I? What do you want from me, God? So this is a confine of search, right? From these still waters, we ask questions, and the right questions, but that's not the end. Because sometimes we ask some of the darker questions, like, gosh, if you exist, God, why'd you allow this to happen? And there's a truth to that. But we have to also be careful by which we ask the questions, because we want God to answer us and not the enemy, right? We're not really big fans of the enemy. He doesn't really care about you. You're kind of a disposable product to him, whereas God actually finds you to be unrepeatably invaluable, right? So he wants to actually elicit your self-worth and bring it to the surface. And so we begin to ask questions. What is the meaning of life? Why am I here as opposed to not here? Where am I going? What's my future? What's my vocation? What's my career? And allowing God to intercept these questions and answer them. But it requires moments of solitude, right? That we begin to ask these questions, right? What is the meaning of life? Which is a big question, but nobody asks this. I feel like it's like such a cliche question that nobody even begins to approach because we're so plugged in. But this is so fundamental. I mean, that's why there's tons of books about purpose and meaning and intention. And you don't read them until you're in your late 20s, early 30s, like, oh crap. Shoot, I exist. I just wasted 30 years, right? Right? Why do I exist rather than not exist? That's a mind-blowing question, right? That's what drove a lot of philosophers to the grave, like psychotically, right? What does it mean to be happy? I mean, we chase happiness nonstop. I mean, we just chase it like crazy. We're like little dogs. They're just constantly like squirrel, 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 squirrel. It's like chasing things, and we have this insatiable appetite, but we're constantly hungry. Instead of to sit back for a second in solitude and be like, man, what does it mean for me to be happy? What does it mean for me to have joy? Have I really thought about this, or have I just been chasing things, trying to find things just so quickly, and then all it leads is to this another insatiable appetite? I think this is one reason why we have so much addiction, because we don't have solitude, and we don't know what we want, so we chase crap everywhere. The quick fix, drugs, sex, alcohol, whatever it may be, and it doesn't provide us ultimate happiness. I mean, I joke about this, but yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with Apple products, right? And even though I'm standing here teaching, I keep thinking the new iPhone will solve my problems in my life. And when I eventually get it, I realize after 1 week, it's really not that great. I still have issues. I can't ask Siri, she doesn't even understand what I'm saying. And she gives me stupid answers, so doesn't work for me. So we got to sit back and ask the bigger questions, and then allow God to answer them for us. Michelangelo, the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting out our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. So we begin to ask questions. What is the meaning of life? What's happiness? And then we go to the lower bar. Happiness is sex. Happiness is relationships with another girl or a guy, or alcohol, or partying, or good grades, or a good career. But this is aiming the bar too low. And so we achieve our mark, and then what happens? That's when the insatiable cycle happens. We achieve our mark, it's not what we wanted, we keep finding it, and then losing it, finding it, and losing it, and finding it, because we're misappropriating, misaligning our capacity for God. We're searching in all the wrong places, as a famous song would say, right? And we end up never finding happiness. I'm reminded, I said this at the first talk, right? Of the example of the girl on MTV back in like 1998, when you guys were just like a little glimmer in your mom's eye, for many of you. And Britney Spears was like huge, and is she still like kind of like, I see her every once in a while, like she's like doing things, but okay. Roman says no, Lauren says yes, I'm gonna go with Lauren on this one, sorry Roman. So that time where this girl could like pretend like she was Britney for a day, and she did it, and she was so excited, she was probably like 20 years old. And they interviewed her, right? I told the story, and like, how was it? Like, the greatest experience of my life. And I remember speaking, I wasn't even Catholic or Christian. I just remember thinking, wow, that's mind-blowing. This girl's greatest moment of her life is not being her. That kind of sucks, does it not? But then there's a truth to it, right? Because in some sense, we're all trying to be someone we're not in one way or another. We are. We're all kind of fakes at from time, right? And we're trying to pull ourselves back together like, no, I want to show my true colors. We're afraid to be embraced for who we are. So that is another word that we misalign this, and we become something other than ourselves, but not something greater than ourselves, right? Giving ourselves to God, who truly has an invested interest in our own well-being and desires our good. Great quote here. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. It's our capacity to do great things that actually frightens us the most. And so we actually succumb to mediocrity. We set the bar low. Because I think in the end, we're afraid of our own greatness. And that might seem like an anomaly, but when you actually do the studies of great people and what's happened to them, it's a dangerous road to be upon. But we're called to be great, and that we are great. And we're called to live life in God and in Christ, and in that we can truly live lives of greatness. And so there is this constant chasm between expectations and experience. Our experience of ourselves, our experience of life, our experience of God, our experience of others, and then our expectations of ourselves. How many of you guys have ever lived in any moment in your life where the experience of yourself did not quite align with your expectations of yourself? You can all raise your hand, all right? I'm pretty sure at some level you thought yourself, what the did I just do, right? I guarantee you, self-edited, I bleep myself out, right? I guarantee you've done that at some level, right? Our experience and expectations are misaligned. So I want to talk about this as we move through this idea of our capacity. Our capacity begins with our poverty, that we are without, that we are fundamentally contingent creatures. And when we change that to the fact that we are self-serving, that we are in self-full control, we let go of that capacity for God, and we suck the life of our ability to connect with God. And so we go from that to search, that if truly are in poverty, we are in search for meaning. We are lost, and nothing that we can get in this world truly satiates us. We still have this void within our heart, and God is calling to fulfill it, but we look at all the wrong places to have it fulfilled. And then we finally realize, man, the way I'm living now is not how I want to live tomorrow or even today. There is a chasm between this. And there's a thing that happens. One leads to the enemy, and the other one leads to God. There's a moment in our life, and it happens every day, and maybe every week, once a month, every few months, where we see our current life as it is, and in some sense we either are ashamed, hopefully not, or we feel guilty about our life because we wish we were this kind of person. We wish go in this direction. We wish we were with this person or that career or that major or that kind of money or that kind of relationship or that kind of family, whatever it is, you wish it was that. And there's a difference between the present moment and that. And then what happens? Some people go to what? Difficult question because you're like, what? Where are you going with this? Some people go to despair, do they not? There's no way. I'm done. I'm done. My life will always be this way. And there's despair. Both have sadness in it. But one leads to despair, another one says, no, like my life is different, but I can be that, right? And that's hope. What's the difference between the two? The difference between the two is simply this, is that there's present and there's the future. And those who have hope, those who are open to the capacity of God, that life is not always the same. There's someone outside this world who can change you and actually blow your expectations out of the water. Like you can become more than what you expect in God. And in that you have hope. But then you also have despair, which is when the present and the future conflate. When the future is distinct from the present, or no, my future can be different, then we have hope. There is a God, and he desires good things for me, and from this I know I can be something that I am not. I can be something greater than myself currently now. That's hope. But then when the present and the future conflate, that's when we have despair. When my present circumstances will simply be the same thing tomorrow, and the next day, and the next week, next year, my present will always be in my future. And for that, I have nothing to live for because I'm in despair, right? And it's God who allows us capacity to see that there is hope, that we can change by asking the right questions and allowing God openness to allow us to be found, to be truly be understood. Another way to show this along the path between expectations and experience. We have expectations of things, and then we have the experience, which diverges. And as we open to God and have our capacity to allow him enter into our life and search for him, the solitude to search for him, we can allow these two things to come together over time, right? And when our experience and our expectations come together, that truly is this elevation with God, right? It's a profound moment, and this is hard to get to. You look at the massacre on the weekend, expectation and experience of humanity. How does that come together, right? That's tough. That's really, 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 really hard. Those things are way divergent. Expectation of how life ought to behave and what somebody just experienced. And we've seen this a lot over the past couple of years. And the hard part, and the only way we can do this is with God, is through him in prayer to have these come in line, to understand how on earth, dear God, is this in your plan? How would you allow this? And allow God truly to speak to you in this moment, right? That's hard. That's the mystery of faith. That's the maturation of our capacity for God, to see as God sees the world, which is not just rainbows and butterflies, right? It's still difficult. But we see that things truly have meaning, and this is a key component. That if we truly believe that we are poor, that we are in search, that means life is discovery. If we are in search, that means life is discovery. And if life is discovery, that means everything has meaning. If you win the lottery, it's easy to find meaning in that. I'm rich, this is great, right? But when things get difficult, finding the meaning in that, that's when the rubber hits the road, right? The real search begins. And then during that time, when you're on that path between trying to align your experience with your expectations, during that path, you still have this great chasm, right? And we always tried through the grace of God to fill that with goodwill. What do I mean by this? This is the road to greatness. This is the road to holiness. Living like God is knowing that oftentimes you're going to meet someone, and your expectation of them and your experience are not going to align. Have you ever had that? Maybe in a boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe, where you experience something and you're like, that really sucked. I expected something more from this person. They didn't align. Or maybe it wasn't even that great or that big. It was a coworker or something that happened. You're like, what did he just say? Did he just say that? And then your mind starts playing games. Or you might start interpreting what that person said, and you start interpreting and filling in the gap between the two. And how do you fill the gap sometimes? That son of a, right? Why would he ever do that? That's scummy. He's a lowlife, or she's a lowlife, or she's just a B, right? You start saying all these things, and you fill it with toxicity. Father Peter once told me a couple years ago, and it still resonates to me, that the goal of life is to fill the difference between experience and expectation with goodwill. Right? Do your best. I mean, that's the life of greatness, and it takes grace to do this, to live like God, to know that oftentimes there's going to be a divergence between experience and expectation, And the virtuous way to respond is goodwill. Maybe they had a bad day. You know, it's that one proverbial story about that man and the kids on the bus, right? They're going crazy on the bus and just obnoxiously loud. And this person that was a few rows ahead was getting so annoyed because the little boys were like chucking things and throwing things at the guy's head, and finally couldn't do it anymore. He turned around and was like, dude, can you take control of your kids? And he just pissed. And the story goes, yeah, it's like, I'm so sorry. I want to. It's just, they just lost their mother today. And I don't know how to explain how she just passed away. You're like, oh, shit. And then everything changes, right? You're like, oh, let the kid throw things at me. I could care less, right? Right? You don't know how other people's days are going. You don't know why they're doing the things they're doing. It could be just things are bad in their life right now. Cut them a break. You fill the void with goodwill. You don't have it. And how to do this? It starts with poverty, and life is discovery. Instead of looking at this kid chucking little spitballs at you, and rightfully so, you want to slap the kid across the face, maybe ask yourself, and this is hard, God, what are you doing to me? What do you want me to learn from this? Right? That's the tough road, right? But when we begin to live like this, we hear God's voice on a whole other level, right? This is the core of our capacity, right? So expectations are built upon experience and promise. What do I mean by this? Is that, as I mentioned in my prayer early on, that there is something innate in us that longs for justice. I mean, how many don't cringe at the fact that there's so many things that happen in the world that are so violently unjust and that nothing comes from it? There's no reconciliation. You're just like, this can't happen. Like, how can this be left unresolved? It's hardwired in our soul to say, no, justice will prevail. It has to. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to crumble. This is the promise, that the deep in a recess of our soul that says, no, everything will be reconciled. What you feel as violence in the world is right. And what you feel like the need for justice will happen. It's not irrational. It has been placed upon you by the creator of all things that is good to let you know as promise that this is not the end. This can't be the end. It just can't be the end. It does not fit well at all. Promise and experience inform our expectations, can re-inform our expectations. So how many of you guys ever watched the Nativity story, this particular one? This is like, I think it came out in like 2000 and... You guys are so good. That was just a trick. I was making sure you're watching my keynotes. 2006. So then I watched it probably around that time. I mean, a little later. So I want to tell you a story about how the answer to all of this, the answer to poverty, the answer to the quest of search, the answer for the meaning of life is that it will be answered. It will be answered, but how it will be answered is in the Christian life. And it'll be answered in such a way that it'll exceed our highest expectations. The most we could ever long for, the cries in the deepest recesses of our heart will be completely fulfilled and beyond that. And the closest glimmer I had was this movie, which I almost laugh at it because most of it is almost so low budget film, it just feels awkward to watch, right? So I don't recommend this as being like, oh, this was like a blockbuster. I mean, this was like, sure. It was a non-Catholic rendition of the Nativity story, which you're thinking, what do you mean by that? It's all fun. It's all the same, except for they kind of put Mary in the background a little more, and that's fine, no big deal. Doesn't really matter. I would say this is a spoiler alert, but hopefully you know that Jesus gets born. And this is an important scene. So I'm watching this. I'm having my popcorn. I'm all alone, just hanging out, having a good night. I smell like coffee. Came up from Starbucks. I was working there in my khakis, and I was just watching the movie, and then at the end, right, Jesus is born, and all of a sudden I started crying, and then I started shaking. I started convulsing, and then I fell to the floor, and I was like, oh shit! Like, I'm sorry, excuse me French. So I got sorry to mean that. I was like, what is going on? Like I'm not like this kind of like mystical person. Like I really, I'm not like into this kind of thing. I mean, I'm in the mystical, like I like to pray. But like this idea of these things happening, I don't speak in tongues, I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't interpret, except for my kids speak in tongues, and I do my best to interpret them, blah, 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 blah. So I'm convulsing, and I'm shaking, and I fell to the floor. I like rolled off the couch, fell to the floor, my hands on the cushion of the short couch. And I remember thinking, okay, Matt, get a hold of yourself, man. This is crazy. You need to get your head above yourself and understand what's going on. So my rational self of trying to lift my head outside of my body to look over myself to see to analyze what I was doing. And I remember it wouldn't allow me to analyze. Like I was trying to get, it's hard to explain, but I was trying to like, my mind to get above it. Like I was trying to like get above this and look down, and I couldn't. It just kept shoving me down. Like, oh. So then I was like, fine, I'm gonna let go, right? I just let go, and I went. And then all of a sudden I felt like my head went right into my heart, like, and then I really started to cry. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized, I know what I want now. Like, I finally know what I want. Like, I know this sounds really glib and like trite and like almost comical, but like, and you probably don't even know where I'm gonna go with this when I say this, but like, I don't want a metaphorical hug. And you're thinking like, what? You got that out of that? Like you cried for not a non-metaphorical hug? Because I realized like, oh my God, like more than anything in the world, I just want to be embraced by God. But like, I don't want to be embraced by some spiritual creature who can't like touch me. It sounds ridiculous. Like who wants a metaphorical hug? Like, oh, feel me hugging you, even though I don't even have skin. I'm like, I want to be embraced by God. Like literally, I want to be enfolded by his arms. I don't care about being saved. I don't care about doing good things. All I want to do is like, if God really exists, to literally be embraced by him. Like, holy, that's the essence of all life. And then in his kingdom, like, this is what you did. The incarnation was this capacity. Like, you literally can hug me. Like, I can one day see you as flesh. You'll literally like come into and like embrace me. Like this is beyond my wildest expectations. And it sounds so simple, but like this is it. Talk about the highest level of connection, to be embraced by the living God in human flesh. And it sounds so simple, but it blew my mind. And it changed the foundation of my life from like this pure cerebral pursuit of faith to an incarnational one, right? And that, I think, is what is so mind-blowing about how the Christ event exceeds all expectation. What other religion says, by the way, you really will get hugged by God? It sounds kind of funny, like you're in third grade, but like, come on, people, like this is insanely beautiful. And this is for me my first snapshot of the idea that God, like, I don't want to skip to a slide already, but I'm going to skip to a slide already. And that Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, was interviewed one time and talked about his products and his innovation. And I don't remember the full quote. You'll see it in 2 slides. And he talks about, look, basically, how do they know what they want until they see it? And so that's why Steve Jobs was so innovative. I mean, they did market polls, that kind of stuff, but Steve Jobs really didn't care so much about that. He knew what people wanted, even though they didn't know they wanted it. And he brought it out, and then the world wanted it, right? And it's the same thing about God. A lot of times the world doesn't know what they want, but they need Christ and they want Christ. And when we sell it to them and give it to them as it truly is, it is unrevocably contagious. It's profoundly beautiful. And so, the Christ event paves a particular path. And the path is important because, after all, we've all been saying at this point in time, we are beggars, we are lost, and we are in search, which means we want to be found. We want to be found. And it's Christ who paves the path so that we truly can be found. But it's more than just that. He paves a path, a narrow path, and a profound path that's clear and it's perfectly can be seen, but he also provides the rescue, right? He doesn't just say, here's a set of rules for your path, and ascend them and you'll be fine. That Christianity is fundamentally distinct, that it's God's descent to man, and not man's ascent to God. And it's God pulling him up in salvation, and so he provides the actual rescue, the fulfillment of everything. Destiny, the desire to want to be known and to know in the highest level possible, and to be embraced in that transparency, to be fully oneself, to truly be able to love oneself, love God, love another, and love creation. We can't outside of redemption. And important thing is that not only the destination does God create for us, which exceeds our expectation, not only does he actually create a profound path for us, not only does he save us so that we can actually get there, but along the journey, along the way, there are some pretty dark moments and there's some high moments. He provides meaning to all of it, purpose to everything. This is the gift of Christianity. That this is a thing, man, if you are looking for, I remember the 4 great things. So there's a new, not really new, right? This idea of kind of work where it's, do you guys know what it's, I forgot, it's been a while since I've read this. It's a new style of work. So you no longer go by hours. You go by, it's like ROW, results-oriented work, right? ROW working, where you actually results-oriented working. So you no longer have to do 40 hours a week. You just get your results done, and if you get it done in 10 hours, you still get full salary. Who wants a job like that? All right, great. So it's a new initiative, it's a new push, it's a new style. So then you can be at home to work, you can go on vacation whenever you want to, you can vacation for as long as you want, you can go wherever you want, there's no restrictions, as long as you get your work done and you meet deadlines, you're doing well, do whatever you want, right? And so he talked about how there's this push for this because monetary incentives just don't work. They just don't really work, especially for kind of thinking work, mind work. It doesn't really work very well. Incentives, monetary work doesn't work, and so you have to do new kind of ways to get people to be motivated. And there's 4 ways to motivate people in non-incentive ways. I don't know if I remember these. 1 is autonomy, to give them autonomy, right? Freedom. Go wherever you want. You don't have to come in the office. The other one is self-mastery. So give them the ability to offer like free education for them so they can become masters of their own thing. So, hey, you can work here, you have autonomy. So you only get maybe $100,000 a year, which sounds great. $100,000 a year versus maybe $200,000. You get $100,000, but you can work wherever you want, whenever you want, as long as you get, and we'll provide free classes for you. So if you want to become a master chef, we'll pay for it, right? Like, okay, this is kind of cool, right? So self-mastery, crap, I don't know the other 2. Anybody know? Probably not. Oh. Okay, I'll get back to you on this one. This is really good because the fact that I have to read all 4 because all 4. I mean, this was like based on a guy. I've read his book. He was on a TED Talk. Daniel Pink, I think, is the author. Ring a bell? Okay, forget this. So these 4 resonate perfectly with the Catholic worldview, Christian. Man, you want autonomy. You truly want autonomy, freedom. Give your life to Christ. I mean, do you want to be addicted to porn? Probably not. Do you want to be addicted to alcohol or anger or be self-absorption or narcissism? Nobody wants these, right? It keeps them from love. It's Christ who frees us and gives us true autonomy to be able to live lives of virtue. And then self-mastery. Oh my gosh, yeah. To live no longer at the confines of vice, but out of virtue, by surrendering to God. Of course, who does not want that? I mean, who wants to actually like just randomly hate and hit their neighbor every once in a while? Nobody does, right? Besides Roman, randomly. Roman always wants to be. He's our outlier that we just kind of. All right, great, awesome. But typically not. You don't. You wish you could be consistently in the act of love and treating someone with virtue. And it's Christ who offers that capacity truly to love, to restore a heart for that which is true, good, and beautiful. Right? And he clearly exceeds our expectations. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that in the end, our destiny is not to see God face to face and see his great mystery and be like, wow, this is incredible. What profound beauty there is. Ultimately, God desires us to be implanted in his great mystery. To actually not to be spectators of the divine mystery, but to be participators. To actually live in the very mystery of God. That is wild. And we talked about this is why I think the angels fell. Why Satan decided to turn from the angel of light to the angel of darkness. Realize what your destiny for humanity is to have them to be partakers of your mystery, and we're not even that, and we're your highest creation. This is BS. I will spend the rest of humanity making sure that doesn't happen, right? And so he goes around and he tries to elicit desires that are contrary to God, so we don't become that, right? It's a great persuasion of the enemy. Okay, well, we're a little over. Let's take a break, and we'll come back at 8:15. Get a cookie, right? They're delicious, and we'll come back at 8:15. Get some coffee. My goal is to end a little early tonight. I should say my goal is to end a little early tonight. We'll see if I'll meet it. Totally random, but my new favorite quote. By James Clear. This guy that does a lot of research on habit formation. And I just heard this quote last week, and it totally resonates exactly how I feel about life. This is not going to be a big, I think we can make this spiritual, but it's not going to be a spiritual quote, just so you know. He said, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. That's really powerful. How many of us, have you guys have made goals before? Okay. How many of you failed them? How many of you failed them more than you actually met them in your entire life? Yeah. Okay. The whole world makes goals, right? What distinguishes the people from actually who fulfill their goals versus who actually don't fulfill them? It's their systems. It's how they, and systems might be like just a really too technical word, but I'm totally into this. I've been in this for years of just like system development and like, yeah, if you want to learn how to run, you want to get running in the morning, what do? You create a system for it. What's your system? You set your clothes out the night before, you put your shoes on. Heck, if you have to sleep with your shoes, you sleep with your shoes on, right? So you get up, you're like, okay, I got my shoes on, this sucks, I might as well go run, right? You create the systems in place by which you maintain the habits, right? This is the pursuit of virtue. Virtue are just good habits. And how do you make them? By doing your best to have triggers available for you to enter into you have a cue or a trigger that enters into the habit. And the cue could be having clothes set out or whatever it may be. But that's just a powerful quote. I think it resonates a little bit with tonight, and I'll kind of mention it at the very end. Any questions up to this point? Oh, by the way, the reason why I want to end a little early if I can is that it's Candlelight Mass, which is every Tuesday. Got it. But it's a special Candlelight Mass is that there's a first-class relic of John Paul II who's here. You come to venerate it. Is it just 8 to 9, or is it during? Is it going to be? Do we know? I don't know. I don't know this. It'll be there during Mass. There's no way it won't be. So there is a first-class relic of John Paul the Great at Mass. It's been, I think, either come over from Poland or from Florida. The group's from Poland, but I don't know where they had it. For those of you who don't know, first-class relic is. It's basically a piece of John Paul II, so literally of him. So it's here to go see and to venerate. For those of you who are intrinsically disgusted by that, I get it. When you grow up Catholic, even if you break away for a while, it's still things like, oh, it's just normal. So except for my family, I would never do that. It'd be crazy. Yes, Lauren.
Isn't there supposed to be like a piece of a holy person in every altar?
Yes, there is. There's a tradition to have it. But we have one, but since our altar is not a permanent altar, I mean, we can just like put it in a van and take it someplace whenever we want to. There's nothing in there right now. Because of the fire 25, 30 years ago at the church, it burnt down, and so we haven't had a permanent altar since. We've had this like mobile altar, which has served us well for Mass in the Grass on Fair and Field. But other than that one day of the year, it's good to have a permanent altar. When we get it back, we'll put St. Thomas Aquinas back in. Great. Have you guys heard of the prodigal son? Powerful story. The story goes a little bit like this. There is a father who has two sons, and one son decides to say, "Can I have my inheritance now?" And for all practical purposes, that means, "I wish you were dead," because you wouldn't get your inheritance until the father passes. So the father, just out of just his pure generosity, hands him his inheritance. The man leaves. So basically, for all practical purposes, for our culture at this particular time, he is disowned from the family. He goes away. He lives a very luxurious lifestyle for some time until he runs out of money. He runs out of money. He's now poor. He is homeless. He doesn't know what to do. So he simply just becomes a hired servant. And then he awakens one day the fact that, wait a minute, like I am like literally like eating the same food of the pigs, which is a symbolism. Anybody want to know why? What is that reflecting of his level of poverty right now? Yeah. Oh yeah. Right, because pigs run clean. You don't even touch a pig as a Jew, and he's actually eating the food of pigs. So he's like at the lowest level, the lowest rung of society. And he finally decides, you know what? Even a slave of my father is better than this. So I'll just go back to him and ask if I can just be a slave, not even be a son. So he starts going back, and it's just a profound parable of this boy walking back, long journey back to his home to ask his father just to be a slave. And what we see is his father standing on a hill looking for his son, which is almost like evokes tears, because at this moment, if you were looking for your son when you've been disowned, that would bring shame upon the father, and he'd be chastised from the town as well. He's doing a very disgraceful thing. And so he's literally entering into an action which is going to alienate him from his entire town, just to look for his son who disowned him. His son comes back and just begs to be a servant at his house, and reclaims him as being a son, and brings him into a party. And of course, the older brother gets a little PO'd because he gets a party and the older brother's been faithful. There's a lot of tears to this parable. But the tear I want to focus on is the fact that here is this prodigal, disowned, disgraced, at the lowest rung of society. You might have been there. You may know people. You may have felt that. And a loving father who not only just sits back and waits, says, you can work for me, but literally is out searching for his son to bring him back in, and to bring him back into the home as if nothing had happened. That's the level of God's love for us, and how we don't understand that like our wildest imagination is not enough for what God has in plan for us. It's a profound gift, a profound gift. The question that was in the video from last week that you could have watched, I really encourage you to watch it for next week. He says the biggest problem is not to convince society that they're eating unhealthy, if we're to use an eating analogy. That the hardest thing is to convince them that they're actually hungry to begin with. And that's the problem for our culture. That it's not that we're trying to redirect our culture to, look, I know you're eating that, but try this. They're uneven aware of the fact that they're hungry and they're starving to death for God, and they're unaware of it. And so what we have to do is try to convince them that they're even not hungry to begin with. And how we do this, I looked up Daniel Pink, by the way, the 3 things of intrinsic motivation. It was not 4, it was 3. It was autonomy, it was mastery, and purpose. These are the 3 things that motivate humanity the most. And when you put those 3 together, you've nailed it. You hit the nail on the head. And those 3 things are at the epicenter of the faith. It provides true autonomy, true freedom, right? Freedom for life, freedom from love. It provides true mastery, to no longer be slaves of vice, of whims of the culture, but living for virtue. And man, does it provide purpose. One of the greatest gifts the church has given me personally is understanding that suffering has meaning. We don't want it. We're not masochists. But if it has to come our way, it has meaning, and that allows me to have purpose. So it's part of what we convey. Like, look, I know what you're looking for. And I know I've got to convince you that you're hungry. and I wanted to end with this, right? Steve Jobs. It's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. But the problem is that we show it to them in crappy ways. Sexual scandal. That sucks. This is really bad stuff. But it doesn't mean that the church is not true, good, and beautiful. It is. Jesus is the most profound gift to every single person who's looking for anything that is good, true, and beautiful. Of course, Henry Ford, the classic quote, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses. Right? And if that, you got them a car. Right? So the idea that our culture has no idea that they're hungry. So what we're trying to do is let them know that truly they are poor. That there is a poverty, there is a void within them that is deep, and they're just fixating it on crap. Spend an hour alone, and you'll begin to understand that. You'll see it in your own soul. That we are in search. We're constantly in search, and that what we're finding isn't satiable. It's not leading to where we're called to be. That we're called to fulfillment, meaning, purpose, freedom, happiness, joy, love. And this is the Christian life. This is a Christian life. Whatever you see on the scandals, that is not what Christianity is about. So, I'm going to do small groups for about, let's just say, 6 minutes. So I can try to end at a decent time for you can go venerate. If you want to go check out John Paul the Great. He's just an amazing saint. If you can, please go. It'd be great, even if you're not going to become Catholic, just to witness this and see it and be a part of it. You don't have to get close. You don't have to get creeped out. It's not going to be like a big head. Like, it's not going to be what you think, right? It's going to be much smaller than that. So, sounds even creepier now. But let's take about 6 minutes. Let's break into a small group and just spend a little bit of time. You can pick one question you want to. So you can pick what resonates with you with the phrase, the protagonist of life is the beggar. What does this mean about how the enemy enters into the scene? How has American culture threatened humanity's quest to be fundamentally search? Where might we have twisted humanity's quest to search into something harmful? What is an example of a time where your experience and expectation had misaligned and how we could have better responded? How does Christianity exceed the expectations, hope of the human heart for you in a particular way? So let's take 6 minutes and just pick one. Answer for about a minute and chat. Okay, I'll let you know. Starting now. Okay, we might come back. All right. So I was just talking to Jess, and we were just talking about how this idea of poverty and beggar. She's like, did you know that that's pretty much the fundamental plot of every movie and every book? I'm like, oh yeah. I think it's funny. Like every plot, most every book, every movie we see has a sense of actually there's this individual or corporate loss, and in that loss there's a finding, right? There's just either they hit rock bottom of alcohol, drugs, sex, war, crime, prison, whatever it may be. There is a rock bottom, and then there is a new search, and then there's a new finding, right, of the self. And I was like, now I'm like totally inquired by the fact that then we are obsessed with these movies since that must sell because that's a basic plot that's sold everywhere. But we ourselves just avoid that like hell. Like, it's interesting. Like, we avoid it, but we want to watch it on TV. So what's the meta story to that? I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet. But okay. So anybody want to share just one example for this? Anybody answer what resonates with you with the phrase, the protagonist of life is the beggar? Did anybody attempt to share about that? And want to share publicly about what resonated with that phrase, if anything? Okay. Yeah.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you know who Inky Johnson is. So he was he used to play for the Tennessee Volunteers.
Okay.
He was a top 10 projected draft pick. And in one game, a few games before he was going to go into the draft, he went to tackle someone and did something to his spine. Paralyzed him, paralyzed his right arm. He could never play football again. But now he does a lot of motivational speeches, and they're all pretty much faith-based, I believe. But in one of his things, the title is like When God Says No. And he talks about how he thinks it's funny when people are like, oh man, if I just make this amount of money, if I had this job, or if I got this, then I'd be happy. And so I kind of feel like that keys into, for me, like, there's always going to be perpetual poverty, and only one source of fulfillment with it. And,
That's awesome.
Even though, like for me, I latch on to one thing, I'm like, that is the goal. That would be perfect. But even after attaining it, after a while, you realize, like I said, you're in a state of perpetual poverty.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. That's sweet. Remind me of, has anybody ever read The Happiness Advantage? Good book. I thought it's pretty amazing. But his whole premise is what you're just saying, Ian, like, people think that if they get this, they'll be happy, but all research shows that happiness precedes everything else. Like, if you're happy first, you'll be happy with money. You'll be happy with, but if you try to look for money first, you will never be happy. I think there's something really powerful there. Okay, second one. How has American culture threatened humanity's quest to be fundamentally search? Anybody attempt that? Yeah.
Our group chose that one, but we basically talked a lot about how, like what you had said earlier with like the present, a lot of times being focusing on our future, and we're actually just like in awe of the fact that like we're almost done with semester 1 of our freshman year, and it just like flew by. So like that kind of goes to show that sometimes we don't really live in the moment, so it's kind of gets hard, and we get caught up in that.
Yeah. It's the busyness, man. Our culture is this, the pharaoh of our age is busyness. Get in the grind, do your crap, stay committed to your responsibilities, and life goes by 10 years and you're like, I just wasted my life, right? And that's a big thing. I mean, I think it's a huge threat, and that we've got to carve out in our life daily times of space to just have some sense of wonder. Oh my gosh, even this basic of, holy crap, our semester's almost over. I mean, you didn't even notice that? It's like, that's bad. It's like, but you're one of like thousands of students who are zombies walking around going to class and then they trying to pass their exams. I'm like, oh, okay, now it's summer, right? And you're in Boulder. It's like I was saying that one time where I was like going to Starbucks and I was like just pissed for some reason. And as there's a bad thing, it's probably some girl thing, you know? And like, I'm just like walk into my car and across the street, all of a sudden I realize there's trees. Dumb as an ox, right? I mean, yeah, there's trees. You're human, you're an idiot. But like, there's trees. And there's mountains. I'm like, there's mountains. Like, I was like, I remember like as if I just landed in Colorado and I've been there for like 7 years. And like, and I just realized, oh my gosh, life is beyond what I'm just dealing with. And like, and for me, it was like this aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like my problems will pass, but this won't. This sunset won't. Like, and that's the present moment. That's the wonder we're looking to aspire to. Where might we have twisted humanity's quest? How might we have twisted humanity's quest to search into something harmful?
I talked a little bit about how I thought that science has become almost like a fetish for our culture of like we want to develop so many technologies and discover so many things about the universe, but it's not actually for a purpose, and we're not really honoring what we discover or seeing it as beautiful. It's more, we're just like to love the fact that we know it, but we don't actually love the thing that we know. That's not me. I just read Learning in Wartime. So, like, I don't think I'm that smart, but
No,
I
it's
just
great.
read that today and it made me think of how much we don't actually like the things that we're discovering. We just like the fact that we are discovering.
That's perfect. You hit the nail on the head. Like, it's just like we live in the information age, and so we're like I said, we are the most informed people about health in the whole world, and we are the most obese, right? We are just suckers for information, as if information is salvation, but it's not. It's just it's nothing. It's a false sense of hope, and so we've now compromised our quest for search into information, and that's the danger. We are not meant to be informed, we're meant to be transformed. And that's a problem that we have. We're constantly informed and not transformed. And so it's the nature of search that allows us to be transformed. What is an example of a time where your experience and expectation had misaligned, and how could you have better responded? Gets a little personal, so maybe everybody avoided this one, but anybody? Time? Yeah.
So as a musician, that's pretty much like a big note that I've
That's
and so just generally speaking, one thing that I, especially lately, have really tried to strive to do is separate my mistakes from myself. Not in a like, oh, that wasn't my fault kind of way, but in a like, just because I just sounded very bad does not mean that I'm not good at my instrument or not passionate or don't like enjoy it or anything. So I think, just being able to be like, okay, like how can I fix this problem instead of this is terrible, I'm gonna go home and watch Netflix instead because this is hard.
That's great. It reminds me of another, like, I literally don't just sit around watching TED Talks and all these books all the time, but like, it reminds me of a TED Talk on genius. You guys watch that TED Talk? It's really profound about how all these people have gone insane because they're geniuses, like artists, musicians have gone insane. And why they've gone insane. And one of the things they said is because they take ownership of their genius. And so what happens is that they become so good that they hit this high peak, and oftentimes they'll hit it at a young age. And they'll be like, now what? They'll get like a bestseller book, which we see a lot of times. And like, now what? Well, my next book's gonna be a flop. I mean, it's just like now I have nothing. Like I'm freaking out, man. Like what am I gonna do? And so her solution was that realized that she read some other mystics and philosophers and realized that thinking genius is something that's not yours and that it passes through you. And that has helped a lot of people save from actually grasping on to like, oh, you just either missed the boat, it came through you, or it'll come again, or that kind of stuff. So fascinating. How does Christianity exceed the expectation, hope of the human heart? It's for you personally. Maybe attempt that one.
One thing that we talked about at our table was how I think one of the biggest ways that Christianity exceeds my expectations is in God's forgiveness for us. And how that's something that, like, I think I personally has, like, I struggled to really grasp the magnitude of His love for me, even despite my imperfection.
Yeah.
So it really exceeds my expectations every time.
Yeah, that's, man, another great one. I mean, how often do we, in one way or another, like we mentioned in weeks prior, do we gauge our connectedness with God by our moral status with Him? And we feel as if we're now disconnected in a way where we can't connect because we've done something bad. We're like, no, God pursues us. We remove ourselves from Him, but He does not remove Himself from us. He loves us all the more. There's a great quote from Love and Responsibility by John Paul the Great, which would be a great night to quote it, but I don't have it offhand. I'll bring it to you. I'll share it to you in a future class that hits that really profoundly. Okay, resources. Just Luigi Giussani, Religious Sense. A lot of this comes from this. It's a great book. It can be a little dense to read at times, but it's not that bad. It's a little book. It's probably could be read in a week. But it's a really, really good book. And it's this idea of the religious sense and the phenomenological approach to the pursuit of God through poverty and search and finding. Regis Martin's talk, his video, is based on that. So it's a good primer. So Religious Sense, in my email tomorrow, I will send a link to Amazon to that book if you're interested. Homework. Practice this for the next 7 days. Practice the search for the gift in all circumstances once a day and journal about it, right? This idea of that we are fundamentally searched. We are poor and we're looking for meaning. So try this. Every day, look back at your day and look through it and find something, one thing in your day, challenging part, whatever it may be, and ask yourself, where is the gift? In the context of Christ, where is the gift in this? Where is the gift? Live life of discovery with God. Don't try to control. Live life in poverty. That life is sheer gift. Pursue it this way. I'll ask if anybody did it next week. Prayer help. So pray with this in light of this. So either Luke chapter 18 through 23, parallel Luke 19, 1 through 19. You don't have to do both. The reason why I had those be paralleled is because they're fascinating juxtapositions. One is the story of the rich young ruler. You guys are familiar with this. He's this good dude. He's like, hey, What should I do? What do I need to do to be saved? He's like, obey the commandments. Like, check and check. Done it. And then he's like, okay, well, just go sell what you own. Come follow me. He's like, what? And then he left. And he was sad. And then you have Luke 19, the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector. This dude's wealthy. He's been stealing money for years. And he's in the tree looking for Jesus. He repents of his sins and just gives his money freely. Jesus didn't even ask. And meditate on these passages when it comes to poverty. What is poverty? It's not about wealth, right? We see this in a particular way. We have one who's really a rich man, but Jesus knows he's tied to his riches. And that's keeping him from true freedom, and he's not living in genuine poverty. And so Jesus asks him to give of that. Like, it's still holding you back from freedom, and the man can't do it. And Jesus even asked Zacchaeus to do it because he was equally as wealthy, because the man was clearly detached from his wealth. He lived in a true sense of poverty, detached from all things, so he could truly be free. In John 3, 1 through 21, awesome passage. Nicodemus, right? This covert Pharisee. Like, he's like, it's like at nighttime. He's like scoping out. He's like, psst, come here, Jesus. It's like, how do I be saved, right? So there's this man in search, like genuinely in search for truth, and entering into and risking his life for it. So these are great passages to meditate on next Sundays in light of poverty, search, meaning, in light of Christ. Okay, before we end, hopefully we can do this in 4 minutes. Break out your smartphones. Hold on, I just don't have my app running. Okay. Let me load. Sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully that will. Okay. So if you go to polev.com/RCIA, you can take the survey. Again, all multiple choice. There's 7 questions. And so once you get through that, we'll quick look at those. And then we'll be pretty much close to done. So I'll just allow us to go for like maybe 3 minutes. See how far we get. We'll go through the questions. Oh, see, it's great. So it's tricky because I incorporate the actual talk. So I'll encourage you to actually watch it, because it is really, really good. So watch it. Okay. All right, great. So, prayer is the oxygen of the spiritual life. And there's hope or wish, moral physics. It is. It's the oxygen of spiritual life. It's the means by which we actually live life with God and we have life. According to Pascal, why did God institute prayer? Great. This is actually from the video, so watch it to know. We'll kind of spoiler on this one and give the answer to it. So A, it says 22% to confer upon his creatures the dignity of becoming a cause. B, to bless his creatures with the gift of the sacraments. C, to provide his creatures with the ability to sacrifice. It is A, actually, a profound statement. To confer upon his creatures the dignity to become a cause. That actually allow your will to actually mingle with God's will to bring about something. Even maybe ex nihilo, from nothing. A huge gift. According to William James, the darkest question in all philosophy is why being rather than nothingness. Absolutely. To be a human being, to aspire to the meaning of one's own humanity, is to be someone whose entire life is understood by the word Search, yes. For some of us, it might be oftentimes confused, but the goal is search, right? For Jasani, who is the protagonist of history? Yes, the beggar. The beggar is the protagonist of all of human history. Why is it necessary to search? Because we are all lost, yes. Because we are all on earth, that is true. Because we are all in search of, because we are all search engine geniuses. Thank you, Jess. She comes up with these other alternatives, which are awesome. Yes, we are all search engine geniuses. But for the Christian, what is the answer to the crying out, being lost and wanting to be found? The Christ event. A. Human life is structured on hope. Everything will turn out right in the end. Despair, abdication. A. Hope. Life is structured on hope. That is what allows us to separate our present from our future. If sadness is a spark generated between the ideal destination and its historical unfulfillment, then to conceal that difference is to create the logical opposite of sadness, which is A. Despair. Right? That's the concealing, when the present and the future conflate, when we conceal the hope within us that is despair. Okay, next week, God's initiative. So we talked about idea this roughly, this open the door of the capacity. If we have the capacity for God, then who initiates? It is God who initiates. How does he initiate? We'll learn next week. And then how do we respond? What's the proper response? We're now building off the creed. This was the presupposition. Next week, we start talking about the two words, I believe. How can we get to that point? God must first initiate, and then we respond with the two words, I believe. We'll talk about the first two words of the creed. We have a long way to go. The creed's quite long over the next 4 months. So let's end in prayer. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Have an awesome week, everyone. If you go to church, please say hi to St. John Paul the Great for me.